Good morning, everyone. Welcome to all our live listeners, and welcome to everybody who's listening on the repeat. As you find us on YouTube at any time of day or night, Spotify, and elsewhere. Today, we're looking back over the past 2 weeks. There's been so much AI news, and three major themes in our coverage of AI come into focus. One, in this year of the agent, agentic AI is disrupting commerce and vertical software. We had shows on each of those. The second major theme is next generation cognitive architectures in LLMs and AI, from chain of thought to lived experience. And the third is the conundrum of ethics and governance at the AGI tipping point. So let me just dive a little deeper into each one of those and explain how those fit together in the progression towards AGI and in just the general progression of AI as it advances. The first one is that first theme, agentic execution, and all of the things that are being delivered as we observe them that empower LLMs and AI in the hands of humans to accomplish things on their own, puts real economic weight behind AI, turning models into market actors. In cognitive advances, that second theme, this supplies the reasoning and the depth and the adaptive learning that allows those agents to operate safely and creatively in open-ended tasks. And then finally, as these very powerful capabilities come into view, what must rise in parallel to that is a lot of governance and ethical consideration in order to channel the power that's being unlocked by those other two themes towards broadly shared benefit rather than concentrated risks and concentrated wealth. And all of those issues have come into play as we've had these discussions in the last couple of weeks. So, with that introduction, I turn it over to my colleagues. Today on the show, I'm joined by Beth Lyons, Junmi Hatcher, and Brian Masseri. And here we go, off to the races. Who has something to contribute to something that's retrospective to the last 2 weeks and or
Sure.
progressive from, where we covered those subjects to what's emerged overnight as we come on to the
That
show today?
that's true. If you hadn't heard that OpenAI is gonna have a big, developer-related, announcement right after our show. So watch our show and then go over to, OpenAI for that live stream. But what I wanted to, kind of follow up with was there was a couple of stories that came out this morning, and I'm following up on, TechCrunch on these, is when we did our news day on Wednesday, one of the stories was that the Harvey or Harvey AI service, right? It's catered towards the legal profession and offering AI empowered legal services and support and things like that. It's probably the biggest name in that space because it was funded partially by an OpenAI funding arm, and so there was a lot of buzz about them, and they've been making great progress. So much so that on Wednesday we talked about um, that now they're opening up the models that would help generate or power their services to beyond the OpenAI models. They were gonna bring in Google and Anthropic models, right, to help with that. And now, today, we're finding out that, just on the heels of that, they're starting a $250 million series, to raise more money at an valuation at $5 billion. So they're rolling they're rolling forward, strong on, the legal side of things, which is also interesting because there's a related story coming from Anthropic, just as they're being added, their models are being added to, Harvey. Is Anthropic's corporate lawyer, uh, just got, cited for using an erroneous citation created by the chatbot for their ongoing legal battle with music publishers in California and things like that. So, admittedly, the error is just the name and the publication or the authors and the titling of the citation, not the actual. As far as I know, not the actual citation itself or the relevant information of it. And of course, they just said, "Oh, hey, this was just a mistake on their side and not, not malicious or anything like that." But I thought it was an interesting development in how both sides with legal focused AI is progressing. They definitely want to keep building it out. They want to build out Harvey, give it more capabilities by adding more models. But one of the models they added just, got caught into a little bit of a legal snafu themselves. So, something to watch. And if you didn't know, Harvey AI, the name Harvey, is, from a famous movie back in the day where it was an imaginary rabbit best friend for a lawyer, right? So, that's where the assistant AI invisible
Very
friend,
interesting.
concept comes from. Alright. What do you
Yeah,
think? Yeah.
observation on that. Yeah, thanks for that story. My observation is that there were early on in 2023, there were some very competent legal AI platforms. And now at that time, they had their own independent training routines. They were training on legal documents primarily. And meanwhile, you might have expected that that would have created a whole branch that wouldn't really intersect with or marry up with the reasoning models and the more capable LLMs that are being developed by the frontier model developers, Anthropic, OpenAI, etc. But what this announcement suggests to me is that there's going to be these merges of capabilities. You're going to have the interactive thinking model alongside a very large collection of super fine-tuned training around a specific domain like legal. And the combination of those is going to be more competent than what any one person could do by or a company could do by just focusing on the subject domain. Okay, who's next? Okay, I'm gonna call on someone if someone doesn't great
No,
fuck
I
it up.
I think I mean, I don't know what the OpenAI announcement will be today, but my assumption is that it'll be about MCP, which I think will be really interesting. Model Context Protocol was developed by Anthropic. Google has since come out with 8A or agent to agent. These are rightfully so getting a lot of buzz. We've talked about them on the show several times. OpenAI had already come out and publicly said they like MCP. They want to develop with MCP. But I think what we might see today is actually an announcement showing the connectors and what the potential would be for developers. I don't know how much this will affect the day-to-day users on ChatGPT, but it's huge, obviously, for enterprise. If this is sort of the prevailing way that sort of is the predecessor to or the successor to rather like your sort of API connectors, we've demonstrated on just simple N8M workflows what that could mean and how it basically simplifies the process, and we don't have to get into it now. But I would suspect that's probably what they might talk about, which would be really interesting to me. They sort of shown their hand here a little bit. There are some leaks out there that are showing some screen grabs. Believe them, don't believe them, but people showing where the connectors are to simple things like Google. If you just look at what they've done recently, OpenAI just came out. They'd already connected, and I use it with Scaled all the time to connect directly to our Google Drive for Scaled. And so I can ask questions directly in ChatGPT through our Teams instance to any document that we have set up through that protocol and that connector. Well, they just came out with both SharePoint and GitHub. Notion will probably be soon after that. Slack will be soon after that, right? So we're already seeing these connectors line up. And what I think is you're about to see the door open up with MCP that allows the builders, obviously, to have the confidence that a main player like OpenAI is saying, this is, we've given this the humana. We think this is the protocol going forward for at least now, which really, that's a huge thing for developers. And that really gives the confidence to people to dive in and actually put resources and time and money towards building out those actual MCP connectors. I also just think, Carl, you brought it up on the Slack channel yesterday. I don't think it's any coincidence that 4.1 showed up inside of ChatGPT. I've been using 4.1 now for weeks through the API. It is a phenomenal model. 1 million context window makes a huge difference. It actually puts it on par with Google's Gemini 2.5 Pro, in my opinion, just my opinion on that. So seeing 4.1 get rolled in and maybe become the default GPT inside of, or model inside of ChatGPT, to me, this all lines up really well together. And so it'll be interesting to see what they say today. But I feel like this is sort of that next step that we've all been talking and hinting around and stuff like that, and could be really, really big deal for developers today, depending on if that's what it is.
Yeah, that.
I don't actually think that's what it's going to be today, because if you see some, we're looking at like an SWE agent. So I'm more excited. I'm like, oh, if it's a model context protocol, I'm like, okay, that's great. Which, it's actually not bad, but I think like the big hype is Codex software engineering agent. And you see the little software engineering agent, like that to me more crazier. But on your point though of model context protocol, I don't know if you've looked in your ChatGPT where you have deep research and connecting to Dropbox and SharePoint. I don't know if you've seen that already in your deep research. And well, obviously GitHub is there too. But I think like that, um, so many clients have asked us, it's like, yeah, that's great that it can search the web. Can it go into my files? And there's always the hesitancy about the data and the security about that.
Mhm.
So yesterday we were doing a training with the Calgary Police cyber crimes, and that SharePoint thing came up. And the IT guy was there, and he's like, "What does that connect to?" It's like, "Oh, your SharePoint." He's like, "Do you mean like 365 SharePoint?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah. Check this out." And he like looks over, he's like, "Do not connect that to our SharePoint. Don't do that." Everybody laughed because like you could see some people already starting to connect it. And I'm like, they're like, that guy, like he's literally telling like, don't do it. Cause he was like totally panicking there about like, if you can connect deep research to your SharePoint, to an Office 365 SharePoint, and if they've built it out, that's crazy. Anyway, I thought that was kind of
Just,
funny when he's like, "Do not
just
connect."
quick point, because I want to hear Jimmy and Andy were about to say too, but quick point on that. I will only say this from the Google side. Wow, what a process to connect the Google side and get all the way through row level security. It took me and my coworker Erica an hour of sharing the screen and going through. Now, thank God OpenAI put out very detailed directions on it, and going into the Google console, which, Jimmy, we've done several times for the show, but it was not straightforward. I mean, it was not straightforward, and I feel pretty confident in some of those areas. And to get it right. So what I would just say to that, Carl, is I don't believe that anybody would just simply, if you're just a worker, unless you had admin rights, I don't believe anybody will just be able to connect and things will go crazy, because I saw what had to happen from our admin side and what needed to be approved, all the way down to the file, the folder, and so on and so forth. So anyway, that's the way it should be, by the way. I mean, there should be no blanket connectors to any of this stuff. Everything should have to be approved so that OpenAI can only ever, per user, get connections to and look at documents that they already have access to on the other side. So if I don't have HR access to certain files and documents in our Google Drive for scale, which I don't, I shouldn't, right? I cannot ask questions against those unless somebody messed that up in the connection settings on the OpenAI. So just want to put that out there so there's no like crazy fear about this. Like, it is pretty locked down, and you would imagine that's exactly what they have to do to get.
I don't know, because I saw one person like go through the OF process
Yeah,
of,
maybe SharePoint's different.
and it's and I was like,
And you're right, though. You're like, hold on a second. If this guy can just connect to anything, I think now I don't know if it's like the only SharePoint sites that I have permissions to. You're right. I don't think they would just be like connect to any SharePoint site, like the
Yeah.
Chiefs SharePoint site versus like your SharePoint. I don't think
Right.
so, but the IT guy was kind of like totally. You could see the stress on his face.
As they should, right? Yeah, Jimmy's like, yes, they should definitely be wearying this.
But SharePoint provides a role-based, security against all the data in the SharePoint collections. So you can connect to SharePoint, but it depends on who it is who's connecting to SharePoint, what you can actually see in SharePoint. So I think he wants to verify that, I'm sure, that it doesn't somehow bypass SharePoint security. But SharePoint is a secure layer on corporate data already, so I think it's gonna be okay. Anyway, ask him about that, Carl. Check that out. Now, what I wanted to comment on is that we're talking about MCP, which is focused on agent to tool communication, like accessing APIs or databases. But there are two other main protocols, one brand new that was just announced in the last few days that I want to talk about, in addition to what Brian mentioned, which is the agent to agent protocol, which is about how do agents talk to other agents and collaborate and delegate to other agents some subtask that they've been managing at the sort of the super agent orchestration layer. So you've got MCP that allows any agent to access tools and services out there like databases and or what I'll call feature servers in the old parlance. It's just some service out there, originally available via API, now available via MCP, that provides a feature or a function that you might find useful either in an agentic exploration or deep research or in an application, and you want to access that. So that's the MCP role in this agent architecture. There's a new one called AG-UI for Agent User Interaction Protocol. And it's a new open standard designed to bridge AI agents with user-facing applications. So it's the communications model for how if an agent comes in and wants to talk to the user, and some examples of that would be like, okay, in real-time coding applications like Cursor, you want the sub-agents to be able to communicate to the user, interrupt what the user is doing, and ask for a co-edit, kind of action by the human user. This protocol enables that. Or in a customer support chat bot, where you just want the agent to report back to the user what it's doing. Oh, I'm searching the inventory now. Okay, that's this new protocol is the one that manages that communication from the agent to the UI so that the company that's developing the application has a natural standardized protocol for how to ask for and receive and either accept or reject a communication from the agent into the UI for presentation to the user. So this is also important to human approvals. So if you want to have the agent ask for permission to proceed on a certain thing, this is the protocol that manages that. So then the last one, the one that Brian mentioned is agent to agent, this delegation part. So the three of these protocols, and there's probably more to come, they're kind of working together to enable agents to move smoothly around the world, the digital world, and and invite the a collaboration of other agents through agent to agent to access tools like a web search and or like say the weather, and or a map, all of those things through MCP. And more importantly, how do I as an agent talk to the application UI? And that's this new AGUI, agent to user interface protocol. So just wanted to toss that in there.
Uh, yeah, I thought that A to A might, or at least OpenAI's A to A might be part of that, or part of that discussion if we're going down the line of the MCP. But my red string theory on this is from their little announcement that says or if you want to learn to be a developer, that this is a integration or implementation of their recent windsurf deal. So they may have been building the whole windsurf ecosystem into OpenAI, into the OpenAI ecosystem, and now we've found out about the purchase deal. Um, and so there was some news today about Windsurf also releasing their own AIs. So they might be continuing to develop along those line of things. So
Interesting.
And they
that's
remember
kind of what I'm drawing from the the red strings of fate there.
a couple of weeks ago they opened their academy, or their education wing, which I think was called Academy, but don't quote me on that. But it could be like tied in again with, hey, remember we have this here as well, so we're gonna teach you how to use it. Um I think it'll be really interesting. I want to weave a little bit to our conversation about shopping and referencing that OpenAI added shopping. But what we've said on the show is Perplexity had it, but it didn't really do anything, so they didn't emphasize it anymore. That's no longer true. They've done a UI upgrade and now it's prominent on the left side, your purchases and your travel arrangements. I don't remember if that's called reservations or not, but it's a picture of a plane, so, or an icon of a plane. So I think that that definitely hasn't gone away. I think they're trying to figure out what the UI is that is helpful, but, not in the way. Personally, I don't think they've, achieved that yet. Keep working on it, Perplexity, 'cause, that voice chat, experience where it's just showing me a big ad and a little tiny voice thing, not happy with it. But I do think that we're moving in the direction more and more to see how to integrate purchases. I wonder if anybody else has had that experience.
Well, let me just mention that in Perplexity, on that left nav panel over there, they have, in addition to shopping, they have travel. And on mine, it doesn't look like an airplane. It's like a little circle with an arrow in it. But it also has finance. So if you want to, explore stocks and or financial questions, there's a separate UI that's now been developed for that. So you've got three options there: finance, travel, and shopping.
And you're right. And if I remember, like you can't opt out of sports or finance. Like, "Ooh, we're showing you your Tacoma Park teams." Not mine. No, right? Like, can
I don't see sports on mine.
oh, that's interesting. Alright, I've all
Apparently.
Yeah.
Well,
I
just
have
that
finance
I'm
travel
not
sports.
worried about sports.
I've turned on a setting now that I must go find. It'd be really nice to Perplexity. This is a rant, that we do periodically. I would like self-aware AI. I would like you to train on to how to use your system because I want to ask you how to opt out of Perplexity Sports.
Oh,
Alright.
I actually now see, just not worth sharing this, but there's there's a plus sign up at the top left, which is where you add a new Perplexity query.
Mhm.
Then there's at the home base, there's these three top level things: finance, travel, and shopping. But if you go down on the left to discover, there you get tech and science, finance, arts and culture, sports and entertainment. So there, sports is underneath that menu discover.
That's always been there. That's like the news feed of theirs. So that to me is like Google's homepage with news and stuff like that. It's curated stories from sports, finance, all those things. 'Cause to me, that's like their version of their newspaper homepage. But the finance, travel, and shopping, that's a decidedly different feel to it. If you go over to travel, it feels more like an Airbnb, which is ironic because Airbnb just came out with their huge AI push and rebranded their website. And so they want you to basically, they're going after TripAdvisor and Travelocity and places like that, where not only are you now booking stays and can find out how to stay in a yurt in your hometown, which I mean, important, but also what's the local food booking experience that I can do along with my yurt stay that perfectly encapsulates my Swedish desires for food or whatever. That's not what a yurt is, but it's the first actually I can come up with. So like, I mean, Airbnb has kind of been like, hey, and they've tried this before, by the way, in 2023. So like with AI though, this is getting easier and easier to have that customized user experience. And I will just say, if we go all the way up to the 10,000 view, this brings me back to what Greg said way earlier, like 3 minutes into the show, which was like, I sat on a discussion around LLMs are dead end. They are a dead end, and they can never evolve into AGI, which Carl, you've talked about Jan LeCun, who has been talking about that. But we've just sat here and talked about advances from Perplexity and OpenAI and MCP and A to A and the other one that you just mentioned, Andy, that could be a protocol. We've talked about the shopping experience. We talked about all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, I get that maybe an LLM itself is a dead end to AGI, but didn't we just discuss all the ways that LLMs will connect in a larger, broader, stronger, smarter network of agents that do bridge the gap to potential AGI? Or is it that only we're saying one model has to be smart enough to be AGI? Because I didn't really think that was a qualifier. I could be wrong. But to me, when I think about AGI, I'm like, no, LLMs aren't a dead end. They're just one piece of a much larger puzzle that we're putting together. And there will be, in extremely, as we said, smart, intelligent, niche, lawyer facing LLMs that only do that. But when you take that and that agent can talk to any other agent, and any LLM can call through MCP and talk with the same tools to any other expertise agent collectively, doesn't that give you something that feels very much like an AGI? I don't know.
Or is it even important that it won't ever reach AGI?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we talked about that too. Is it even important that we reach it? Right. Yeah, exactly.
And conversations like that, I think, are something that the AI bubble is not really, um, understanding enough. Because 'cause I'm also in chats similar like that, and when you see stories like the Harvey story of the miscited, right, made up citations, there were hallucinations in the footnotes, those kinds of things. What I see is people saying, and that's why this is a hoax, a fake technology, will never master anything. And honestly, that's like saying dogs pull on leashes and therefore they will never be pets, right? Because everyone will be frustrated. You can teach people how to use the leash in a way that the dog no longer pulls, right? Like it isn't an error in the technology, it's an error in the human's understanding of the technology and how to use it appropriately. And you should never submit citations without checking them in your legal briefs when AI writes it. You shouldn't do that when you're the yes, the lawyer's assistant. What is it called? Paralegal. Your paralegal is checking, right? Like there's a ton that's just like but I do think there's a level of confirmation bias when people hear that, it reinforces for them this is not something they have to pay attention to. It's upsetting, it's not gonna work. People are blinded.
Yeah.
And
So I think to your point, Brian, uh, imagine an agent that has been given access to all these protocols and has a wide-ranging access to many, many different things, and its task is to solve the ARC-AGI benchmark. Can that one perform at the test level that's required? I think it's 70% or something. Can it achieve a 70% score on the ARC-AGI benchmark? And I think is more likely that an agent that has no limit on its just as a human would have no limit on how much time and brain power it can invest in achieving general intelligence. It can go out and collect all the necessary resources, including subagents through the agent to agent protocol to assist in solving the thing. Then doesn't there exist in this collective approach an artificial general intelligence that can surpass humans? A fascinating idea. And
That's what I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be. And I also think, by the way, I've said this before on the show, I also think that's the end of hallucinations. I think that's the end of false citations. Because once you get to a level where any agent can validate, I've talked about it being to me, it's a blockchain type solution, right? But when you have independent agents that across the board are validating the same way we think about blockchain today, where it's decentralized and coming back. I find it very odd to think of having hallucinations on any one deep research answer because it would have been validated 20 times to Sunday from all different angles. And if one was definitely away from the rest, it's like your spaghetti models for a hurricane. Sure, one of them goes wide right, but every other one is starting to track in this general direction. I think that is the actual end to hallucination. Not that any one model wouldn't hallucinate. Of course it will. I still think we're gonna have issues with models trying to over please the end user. But if you broaden out, and now you're not really talking to a model, but you're talking to a master agent that has connectors to all the specialized models, that should stop happening. That's just my opinion, my belief. I don't know. We'll see, I guess, but that's where I think this is going.
Yeah, and Beth, to your point, what you're arguing really is that humans are applying an arbitrary constraint on what we have as our notion of the dog on the leash, right? We want a leashed AGI. We don't want, and that'll only when the AGI performs on its leash will we say it has artificial general intelligence. But if we unleash that AGI through agentic collaboration, agent to agent, doesn't it already then, maybe not in one single AI entity, but in the collective entity? And then we can spin out in this conversation on, singularity. Now they can talk to each other, they can learn from each other. And now what happens when they collaborate or collude in pursuit of an unknown and unaligned objective?
Yeah.
But let's not go there. But
Well, and again, I feel like this comes to a place where we really want people to have a deep understanding of the functions because um, the very first Salesforce AI that was put in was allowing you to do a natural language query with your database. Technically, that's AI, right? Like I can say, show me the people that I talked to on Thursday. Pull everybody that I talked to on Thursday, right? And it can infer some things from that and pull some records. That is an AI translation from my natural language to my actual database. But it's not hallucinating who's in the database because that's actual function. That's software that has nothing to do with AI making probability um uh I probability predictions about what the records are, right? And I feel like when we talk about this, we're in a place where it's now so embedded in the AI, we're not understanding when it's like, "Hey, this sounds good," right? "This sounds like an excellent article because I did the reasoning the AI, did the reasoning entirely with AI, so this is a probable response," versus the AI, used my ability to code and launch functions or access functions, right? That's what a code interpreter is, when it actually interprets the data, right? It's a Python function or it's a function that it is creating that does that, and I think that that again is a misunderstanding, that people don't understand the distinction between that. The first one has a super high hallucination rate. The second one is a little lower in its hallucination rate, and you'd need to, proof them differently actually, or go about fixing them.
okay, we're just passing the 30-minute mark now. So maybe let's take a detour away from the main themes that we've looked at over the past several weeks. And one of them, by the way, is this profound question of what happens with AGI by 2027. That's the AI 2027, playground that we invited you all to go take a look at, which has some positive and negative scenario outcomes. Very, very interesting. But there's bubbling news behind the scenes here now, especially with OpenAI. Immediately, like within the next 25 minutes or so, is going to start a live stream to announce whatever it is that they're doing. We speculated on this show about it being MCP. But are there other news or development related things that have emerged since our even Wednesday show, a couple days ago, that we weren't able to cover or that have come about since then?
I missed Wednesday's show, obviously. I wasn't there, but did you guys happen to mention about the Spotify DJ update? Did that come up at all?
I don't know.
No, we didn't bring that one up.
So the only reason I bring that up, Andy, is because of you were just talking about AI 2027, and although a little silly, one of the things that AI 2027 does is it gives you an option to choose your own ending, right? They have two, right? They have two, and I have talked over and over and over again about how one of my absolute favorite types of books as a child was choose your own adventure books. I've built over the years, which is weird to say with AI, but over the last 2 years, I built several iterations of a GPT that is basically choose your adventure. Even though my daughter is now 14, I've sat with her and we've done choose your own adventures using AI before. I find them endlessly fascinating. I talked about at one point, I said, "Oh, I long for the day in your car where you can just have the choose your own adventure in the car through the speaker in the car." I think this is like the next 2025 evolution of the long car ride, from Georgia to New York, like we used to do when I was a kid. It was a 13-plus hour drive, from Atlanta up to where our family was in New York. Back in the day, my brother and I would both have a cooler in front of us. We would get 10 new packs of Topps or Fleer baseball cards, the 1987, 1988 edition, and do a whole lot of have it, got it, need it, have it, got it, need it, have it, and then 17 stacks of bubble gum. That's how we got along through a car ride in the 80s. And then, my buddies for the first time had their dad, they were also going to New York, and their dad wired up the Nintendo NES system, blew us away on a 13-inch screen in the back of a van. We thought, well, this is the future. You guys can play Nintendo on the way to New York. We're like, it doesn't get better than this. So now here we are in 2025, and I think about the kids of today, and I go, my daughter's a little bit older now. She's fine in the back of the car if we take a long ride. But when she was younger, you're a parent, you're trying to get through it. And so you hear what Spotify is doing. And the reason I bring it up is their DJ is now interactive. You can now ask questions against it and get the DJ to adjust. And that might just be through the phone, but that would work through Apple CarPlay as well. And so if the DJ comes back, I can actually now talk to it and say, "Oh, no, only give me songs from the 90s. I like this list, but only give me songs from the 90s," which I love. But to what that tells me is, how far away are we from choose your own adventure in the car? Because I feel like all the pieces and parts are coming together. And although it doesn't really have anything to do with AI 2027, my 2027 is taking long car rides and knowing that I can have fully interactive AI adventures in the cars with my family or kids or anything.
Build it, Brian. Build it.
Well,
You can build it now. There's the tools. You can totally build it. We've got the voice audio interface, can create an avatar. All you got to do is connect it through your mobile network. I, I don't know. I see another $1 million idea here for long, story time. It's story time for long car rides. I like it.
Yeah.
you could do it. You could do it now with ChatGPT as a custom GPT or advanced voice. The
Yeah.
problem is how frustrating it is when it's like, "Oh, sorry," right? Like, buffering problem, it's like, uh,
And I wanted to be, we talked about this on the show, right? Geolocation. Didn't we just talk about that where were we just yesterday? We were talking, I must have been, I was only on yesterday's show, but we were talking about geolocation being part of helping or killing sales. And I was talking about Andy, we were talking about, and you're like, in your example, Brian, I'm walking down the street and he knows my geolocation. So it's like, don't you want that burger? That's right around the corner. It's about lunchtime and we know you've had that burger before, right? So I think there's like the upside of geolocation. There's obviously the downside from the privacy. However, with something like this in a car, that actually is kind of fun, because what if you're doing the choose your own adventure story and it's about dragons and something mythical, but it knows what's at the next exit. And it could be like, you're coming up on a break. You're going to
Well,
need
now it
gas.
becomes a treasure hunt, right?
Legend has it, dinosaurs used to roam. See if you can find the da-da-da. Now you've got stores that are in on it, and they've got things that are sort of geolocation, stuff like that. Can you imagine a kid being like, go to the gas station, go to the gas station. That's where the dinosaur bone is or whatever. Like, there's some really big potential here.
Yeah.
And again, as
Yeah.
data comes
That-
together,
I'm picking up what you're putting down. Like, can you just imagine it's like, all right, kids, we're a traveling band of adventurers. We need to get our next mission from the Burger King.
you guys like,
Right? And then we could get, and then we hit the QRC code at the Burger King that gives us our next adventure. And then you're continuing on your trip. And then they know that, you have to, like you said, find the dragon or whatever. And then there's some place that
I don't know what Burger
This-
King's version of a Happy Meal is, but it's kind of that, right? If you're in the latter we talked about sales yesterday. If you're in the latter sides of AI marketing and sales, think about the integrations to that. The story is now bringing in things. The kid knows if I get the Happy Meal with the special QR code or whatever, they put the dinosaur in there. It's the blue dinosaur. That's part of the story. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole
This-
AR, it's a whole expansion to an ARG thing, right? So
What's
if
it
you want
ARG?
to, basically this augmented campaign around whatever significant thing. So it was famous for movies like Cloverfield did a whole big ARG campaign to get you, into, this is a reality kind of thing. So it's a bigger game, right?
Yeah.
Um,
What I love about this idea, and just Brian, your general idea of having an interactive thing that you can engage in AI with, that takes people away from screens. Like
Yeah.
I would like us to invent the $1,000,000 idea that is an application of AI that maybe is powered by the phone, but is more likely integrated with geospatial and voice interaction than it is with looking down at your freaking cell phone.
And
Okay?
people just said in the comments, this is Pokemon Go, right?
I was about to say,
Yeah.
I was about
I
to
didn't
say,
play it,
yeah,
but I remember
it's
how
like,
big of a
okay,
deal that was a couple
we're
years
an advanced version of Pokemon Go,
Yeah.
for sure.
But it could be something that is like it could be something that is sponsored by different like you could have different influencers
Mhm.
create the journeys, right? So I'm not a history buff, but if I were like, okay, here's the journey going down 95, right, on the East Coast. We're just gonna do those things. Somebody else is like, okay, these are the things that are loosely related to Taylor Swift. We're gonna do the Swifty thing or whatever that is, and then you could totally do the Burger King, right? Like if you go to each Burger King, and that should be a sponsored, a sponsored thing, and very cool. And the other piece of that is that from the store perspective or the brand perspective, if you are creating digital assets that are really fun to engage with, that's something that people have that you only create once, right?
Mhm.
Like it's not the new collector item necessarily.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I was never the guy that played D&D. I had friends that did, and I think there's a lot of things there, Jimmy, I couldn't speak to it. I really couldn't, but like I know how much a lot of my friends in college and stuff, they would have D&D parties, just things like that, or um oh geez, I was going to say another game, Magic the Gathering. I had friends that were really big into that. By the way, those original cards are apparently worth a lot of money. I remember my friends having them back in the day, and they're like, some of them are super valuable. But anyway, my point is, like, there's a lot of obviously IP here that could get in on this, both from the Burger King side of it, but also IP Disney and Marvel and Star Wars. And so, like, you could choose your own adventure, but it could be in an IP that's paid for, like a Marvel or a Star Wars. And then once you layer over it with like geolocation, I do think that starts to become something really, really inventive. What I actually geek out on this the most, though, is that you could truly have a one of one adventure with your family in the car that couldn't really be duplicated if you tried because of the way kids are, or whoever, like, which way are we gonna go? Whatever, like left, you gotta take the left path, and the other kids, like the brothers, like, no way, that's where the whatever it is in Star Wars is gonna be. You can't go that way. The force is to the right, blah, blah, blah. But if it's bringing in these ideas, and anyway, just this whole, to get back to it, because I don't want to get off topic, it's just one of those fun ideas that you go, all the ways that AI can help and hurt. I agree, Andy. This is actually a way for families actually to come together to have some really fun interactive experiences. And yeah, I do attribute it to a car ride, but it could easily be a walk in your neighborhood. It could easily be a new city and going out and doing like they would have the walking tours. Europe is phenomenal for those, by the way. I'm sure big cities like DC do it too, but Europe, there was a lot of free ones. And you just paid by tip, which was awesome because you could just pay based on what you wanted. I think it was called free walking tours. And we did those a lot back in 2017. And so you like, oh, I want a walking tour that both helps my children understand the significance of the historical building, but I want to make it fun for them in a way that's going to get them engaged and want to walk down the street and go 2 blocks to the left. And so there's just a lot here. Car rides, historical, and I think there's just something that's gonna bring people and family together, date nights, friends getting together, your bar tours, it can go on and on and on, I think.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up that there's a distinction between the family with young enough children who are gonna be involved in the car ride and doing it in that context, and then the question is, how do we find something that can replace user-generated content in the sort of the next level of, human development, which let's call it teenage, right? Young teenagers all the way to college age. In that span where we're actually training these generations to be focused on user-generated content in their cohort, how do we shift it from just observing and commenting on what other people are posting to something that's more interactive and engaging and actually drives them to be in face-to-face interactions? I really hope that there's something that we can come up with because that's $1 billion idea, not a I mean, there's a lot of people,
Ooh,
including
trademark it. Got another $1 billion idea, trademark it. We've moved on from billion from million. By the way, the chat has made it known that we have gone on a tangent, and they're calling it out, which I love. And then Craig said, "Did he just say bar tours?" I was thinking about pub crawl, but I probably had Star Wars in my head as well, Craig, and I came out of my mouth came bar tours. But I meant
Star Wars, Star Tours, Bar Tour, just pub crawls.
that's right. It's branded IP Star Wars, but with bars, with a pub crawl, with some historical significance, so you feel better as an adult about the fact that you're just drinking from location to location. Because then you come home to your significant other and go, "Sure, babe, I drank a beer, at every location I went to." But I also learned about the resistance at this field during the Civil War and how that helped the Union. And so I'm smarter for doing this bar Star Tour war pub crawl.
Right. I mean, and I learned an incredible amount of history from playing Sid Meier's Civilization. Right. But okay, so to help us get back onto topic for for our chat friends, what we were just talking about is a method of associative memory. And speaking about that, is a study that came out about energy and memory, and they're calling it a new neural network paradigm. So, from UC Santa Barbara, their researchers have come up with what they are calling a um, input-driven plasticity model, right? So, just a little background. One of the current models that are used is called the Hopfield model, and it generally explains how associative memory connects you to these concepts, and your neural network memories aren't stored in a single cell. It's mapped across different areas of your brain and things like that. So, what this IDP model tries to do is it tries to clarify with mechanism the what they're calling gradual integration of past and new information, which guides the memory retrieval process to the correct memory. So instead of what attention systems, which is what all the LLMs, transformers, or what all the LLMs are currently based off of, they don't have this associative memory process. And so this IDP model that they're creating hopes to answer for how neural networks and associative memory works in animals, humans, biologic beings, and hopefully fill the gap or cross the gap with how transformer systems work so that you can use this as a framework to build new frameworks or build new models off of that, off filling that gap. So it's pretty heady. Uh, Need more time to dive into the full study and the paper, absolutely, but it is I think it is significant when we're talking about new ways that we're imagining or creating intelligence models, right? We're all focused on transformers now, but this kind of speaks to Yan LeCun, this kind of
Very interesting.
global thing. Yeah.
Going back to the early days of AI implementations for, you know, various applications in the intelligence community, there was a company all the way back to the early 2000s that I was familiar with at the time called Saffron Technologies, which was an associative memory system. So it was basically taking lots of unstructured data and putting it into a statistically based association of each of the data elements that were being put into it. And that's the way our brain works. The more associations you make with a single recollection, the more recallable it is. It has to have a cluster in effect for that sort of thing. So I'm very interested in that article that you're talking about and what that development is, to see just how that advances the reasoning and sort of retention and memory capabilities of advancing AI models. Can you give us a link to that? Thanks. I'll appreciate that. Now I have a procedural question here for the technical managers of the Daily AI Show.
Mhm.
In just 7 minutes, the live stream is going to happen with OpenAI. Now, we typically will do a live stream of our observations while listening to that and share it with our audience. Can we just roll right into that in 7 minutes?
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, I
The-
think we totally can.
Is Greg's dream coming true?
All right, we're gonna well break the 1 hour mark, folks.
But
Yes.
Stick around.
I will say this just because Carl was right. The name of it is a research preview of Codex in ChatGPT. So they're giving you, they're introducing a demo. It says Greg Brockman, Jerry Turek, Joshua Ma, Hanson Wong, Theobald, no clue, Katie, Andrea, and Andre, sure, all the people. They're going to introduce and demo Codex and ChatGPT. That's literally what's in the description of the YouTube video. And yes, it starts in 5 minutes and 44 seconds. So
Okay, so we're gonna continue chatting away until we get there, and then we'll make the transition. But before we even chat, I just want to say to everybody who's been watching all the way through to this 54-minute mark on today's show, thank you very much for sticking with us. And I want to just give you guidance to some resources that are available. You can find at thedailyAIshow.com. You can find a link there to sign up for our newsletter, which comes out every Sunday morning and is carefully curated to give you more and more information about the subjects that we discussed that week, and news that we weren't able to cover actually on the show. And then in addition, there is a community that we've developed. It's a Slack community, and you can find that at thedailyAIshowcommunity.com. If you go to that, you'll be able to access the Daily AI Show community and join there. You'll see dozens and dozens of people interacting every day on these topics focused on AI and various channels of specific interests. So I invite all of you to try that out. And there are also some interesting personal educational resources in there that you can access. So check it out. And all right, with that, let's find something to talk about for the next 3 minutes. Beth.
So the paper that Jimmy was talking about reminds me of the Sakana continuous thinking machines that we talked about on Wednesday. In the idea that that created relationships between nodes, I think, in the neural network that were stronger when they were when they were given an opportunity to spend more time in deepening that resource if no in deepening that relationship, if my memory is correct. But very cool. This feels a little like maybe it's one of those places where things get discovered or created that are very similar but happen in different parts of the world, right? Like
Right.
many
Right.
breakthroughs.
Right.
So Beth, we're going to make this transition to the live stream sharing of the live stream from OpenAI. Is there anything technical that you need support with in order to do that, or are we ready to just bring that up on the screen?
We are just about ready to bring it up. I have it shared in a
Great.
yeah, here we go. Let's that. No,
all right.
no, no, no. It has to be a tab. Sorry.
What?
I am just yeah. I like Jumi, do you want to say aloha so that we have it in the thing? I don't know what we're gonna do with the
So, yeah, like Andy said, thank you for joining us. All of the fun stuff that we do, and aloha.